Are you working on your author career but struggling to get that first book published? Does the goal of being an author seem too lofty? Or thoughts of having multiple books and making a full-time living are as fantastical as living in Cinderella's castle? Welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where aspiring authors can be heard. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have gotten their foot on the author career path. Hear what they've done to get there and where they want to go now. Settle back. It's time for a bit of inspiration and advice. Come listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
October is a big theme month with all the Halloween and horror stuff. So before we get on to that, let me ask you a couple other questions. You're working on your second book. You wrote this first one. What are some things you've learned writing that first one that you're doing different with the second one?
Definitely don't worry about the first draft. That's a really hard one to get okay with, but don't worry about the first draft. Just write it all out. When that muse comes calling, listen, sit down, just write. Don't worry about anything else. What readers liked, it was good to see what readers liked from my first book, and then knowing, okay, I can do this more in my second book and add it in there. Geez, I don't have a good answer for this one. I'm sorry.
Well, that's fine. And I mean, you've only written one book, so there's probably still a lot of things you're learning.
I just don't, I'm still kind of feeling lost in the weeds a little bit.
And that's perfect too, because the focus of the podcast is new authors, not someone who has, New York Times bestsellers. I'm not going to talk to Patterson, talking to new authors. And a lot of times new authors feel like, oh man, everybody else has it all together and know what they're doing. And that's not true. Just about every author I talk with, is the same way. It's like, man, like you said, the second book's hard. Oh my gosh, it's not the easiest thing in the world just because
And you think you'll get that first one published and it'll just be easy and you'll be confident and you're like, oh, I'm really a writer now. And no, that doesn't make everything go away. It's still work and it's still difficult.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So when you're writing, what software and services do you use? Do you have anything special that you really like?
I just use Google Docs.
Okay.
Sometimes I might pop it into Grammarly and just make sure I'm doing okay there. There's a fun little website, Hemingway Edits. Oh gosh, I don't remember that, but It's based on Hemingway's writing. You just pop something in there. It'll tell you too many adverbs or shorten your sentences. It's just fun to see.
Yes.
To use.
And I use Pro Writing Aid and help, like you said, learning more. It tells me what I did wrong and why, and it helps me improve. I use it, as a learning tool, not just editing. So Grammarly is similar in that. Yeah. So what are you doing? You said this came out 2 years ago, and I think that's a great thing too, because a lot of people think, oh, I got to get my book out and it's got to rise and top and I've got 30 days and oh, I'm not a bestseller and I'm done. But here you are 2 years later, you're still working on it. So what are some of the things you're doing to market it and what results are you seeing?
I'm using Facebook, getting the word out there, and that's going well. I really like the environment of Facebook. It's very friendly and supportive. I'm on Twitter. I'll post things on there occasionally. Just talking with other writers, helping them promote their stuff and share things going on with them. And then, of course, people see you sharing that, and then they're curious about you and they look on your page. I'm a little bit of a recluse. I'd love to be like a Salinger type and just be a hermit writing, but you can't do that anymore in this day and age. You have to put yourself out there and be known and talk to people and get your book out there.
Right. Yep. So are you seeing results, anything better than something else?
No, I don't think so. Goodreads has been good. I've gotten a lot of more reviews on Goodreads than I have on Amazon. So that's been a great website to share on there.
Nice. Okay. Well, that's something to pass on. And is this your first podcast or have you done others?
Yes, this is my first podcast.
Keeping my
How's it going?
It's going great. I'm having a good time talking to you. This is great.
Okay, perfect.
So let's talk about our main topic of theme. And
Yes.
so I think this is great because horror writers really have to get that down. You really got to have that theme and the overall what you're trying to say in the book, along with the atmosphere, theme and atmosphere.
Mhm.
So why did you choose this topic and why is it important to you?
It's one of the most fun things about writing for me is injecting theme into parts of the story. And I feel like it can really keep you on track as an author when you're getting lost and you feel like, oh, he did this and he did that. And the writing's getting boring and it's not creative. You think, where can I put the theme into this? And infuse it with some atmosphere so it's not just plain and boring. Prisoners of Stewartville, the theme in that is prisons. So there was tons of opportunities to make that feeling of imprisonment come through in the book. When he's in his bedroom, it's very cramped in his bedroom, sort of like a cell. And I just think that's a great way to make the reader feel what you want your atmosphere to be and what the story is about, is just dropping in the theme every once in a while. Maybe your theme is about abandonment. So you're in a diner and a teddy bear has been left on a booth, and you're not outright saying it, but you're just creating these images and visuals for the reader that stick to your theme and atmosphere.
Okay. And when you're writing horror, how are you creating and adding to that atmosphere? What do you like to do?
Oh, I love writing horror is so fun. Just trying to get people's heartbeat going a little bit or freaked out. So I, concentrate on feeling. Um, they say horror is a lot like romance. It's all about the emotion. They're two sides of the same coin. So just trying to get the reader to feel something through what's going on, the shadows and the tension within each line, or a noise over here. And it's so fun. I don't know if I do it well, but it's fun to try.
Well, it's very different than a horror movie because that's almost all visual with some sound. And me and my buddy talk about this a lot. The best horror movies use sound very effectively. The ones
Mhm.
that really only rely on visual, kind of, mostly what they start getting is jump scare after jump scare after jump scare.
Yeah.
Well, that's all they got. But the ones that really get that atmosphere and the feeling and how to build that in visual, along with good sound and things, little things or whatever, create the most atmosphere. Books are different. You don't have sound at all, and just putting drip, drip, drip doesn't, help a whole lot.
It really doesn't. Speaking of sound, though, we just watched the new Hellraiser,
Yeah,
and I noticed that in the beginning of the movie, you've got this heartbeat sound while she's like doing research, and I was like, "Oh, the sound in this is great." That
right.
was a good movie.
Yeah, I liked it. I wouldn't say it's a revolutionary reboot or anything. I didn't think there
No.
was a whole lot of difference between that and the original stuff. But me and my son enjoyed it. I watched Halloween Ends last night, which I liked actually a lot better than I thought I would. In that
Yeah.
whole trilogy, I didn't like the middle one, but the last one, put the middle one in a slightly different perspective for me. So
Oh,
yeah,
we're watching that tonight, so no
there you go.
spoilers.
Send me an email. Let me know what you think.
All right, I'll do that.
So, have you had any readers tell you when they're reading it that, oh, I couldn't put it down, I had to keep going because it just had them so on edge reading it?
Yeah, a lot of people said it was very fast paced. They read it like right through, page turner. They loved it. Just they loved the setting. They loved the title of the book. They said it's one of the best titles for a novel that they've seen in a really long time.
Wow.
Um, it just because I think when you're reading it, you'll see that the prisoners of Stewartville are not just the people in prison. There's a lot of different types of prisoners and prisons in life. And that comes through in the book.
And that part of your theme there too. Did you have the theme when you started, or did you kind of discover it as you wrote and adjusted your writing?
I discovered it probably about 4 chapters in. I was like, okay, I think I see where this is going. I had my title ready, and then it just went from there. And once you have that theme, it really carries the book forward for you as a writer. knowing, okay, I need to make these certain things happen because this is the theme of the book. This is what's going on with my character.
I agree. I'm the same way. I know a lot of people say, oh, I outline everything and I come up with my theme so I can, and I'm like, man, I haven't been able to do that. Maybe I'm not good enough, but maybe it's just my thinking and style. I got to kind of get the story before sometimes I even discover what the theme is. And then a lot of times I'll go back and adjust and change things for that.
Exactly. Yeah. You can just write the first draft and then figure out what your theme is, and then go in and start dropping that theme in the rewrites and the final drafts. Absolutely. And it's really fun to do.
Yeah, for me, I've discovered that the editing process is much more where my writing and creative writing comes out. Whereas I have the story, I have the idea, I have the actions, but it's that editing where I can figure out what my theme is and interject that, and then do the atmosphere, the thoughts, the sounds, the feelings, the visual, add that in afterwards. Definitely. I think that's the better place to add it in, but that's what works for me.
Yeah. And I know they say, what's that? Like sometimes blue curtains are just blue curtains, but I think if you have your theme in mind, it does come out subconsciously. I had a reviewer say about a scene, oh, and the atmosphere they built right here and the theme was perfect. And I was like, oh, that was totally not on purpose. And I wish it had been. But I think when you've got that in the back of your mind, it does come out in the writing.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. Horror, especially romance, but it fits in a lot. Thrillers, like, I don't know if you've read Lee Child Reacher books.
I've seen the movies.
Okay. Well, the Amazon show is much better than the Tom Cruise movies. So
I was going to say that. I loved him as Reacher. That was perfect.
He was absolutely perfect. And it's much closer to the books. But the books have a totally different feel than when I read a King book. One of King's better qualities, and I'm sure we could discuss all of his bad qualities, and there's a lot of people that think he's not as good a writer as he gets the money for. But one of his good qualities is really drawing you in and fleshing out the world and the characters, and you really feel for those characters. That's where he sets his mood, and then his themes come out through those bits by bit, sometimes a little too much. But action and suspense thrillers like Reacher, I don't get that as much. Themes, really don't get a whole lot of, because they're all similar. And atmosphere, it's not as much. It's more just the action itself. So, you really got to look at your atmosphere for horror. And like you said, love and horror, they're kind of the same thing, just opposites. You got to have a good theme, because that's what pulls people in. Just trying to do a slasher movie as a book is go fall flat, and unless you're getting something more in there.
Yeah. And I think it's hard. Like King can sometimes, there's his criticisms, but the thing with horror is it's the unknown that's scary, and it's the mystery that's exciting. And then once you kind of get to the end of the book and you find out, what the monster is or whatever it may be, and the mystery is kind of being solved, that horror feeling kind of goes away. It can kind of feel a bit like a letdown. It's very hard to, once you know what something is, oh, it was a book fell, it wasn't a ghost or whatever. In real life, it's kind of gone, that magic.
Yeah.
So that it's difficult in horror.
Very, very. And like you said, I think that's why the best horror movies don't focus and show the monster. Even with the special effects and stuff that we got now, when they focus on the monster and you see it in full light, it loses a lot of that. The best ones, I mean, a good example is Cloverfield. You don't really you see bits and pieces of the monster, and like werewolf movies where they like close up and you watch them transform, it never comes across as scary as it could. I think other quote unquote tricks that the movies use make it better. Like the Disney Plus Werewolf by Night that just came out. They didn't show him transform. It was a shadow.
Yeah.
And I think
that was a great show.
It was very good. I love that one. And I think in books, I think King has discovered very much what gets people, wanting to keep reading and like on the edge, like, oh man, he does fall flat a lot of times with the ending of, I don't know if it's just how he describes it or whatever, but it seems like everything up to that point is superb. And then a lot of times, like you said, the ending is kind of like, oh, that's all it was.
Yeah,
So,
I
like
was a spider.
I was just thinking that too. But I
Mhm.
was also thinking the Under the Dome. I was like, what? It's okay. I get the big universe, other world thing, but it's aliens with a cup on the ants, and we're the ants. I'm like, it just.
Oh yeah. But
I
it's,
lost it.
the premise of his books is always so great. Like, oh, okay, I read Dome, and the premise just seems so interesting. But yeah, the ending, we
Yeah,
don't have to go there.
yeah. But it sounds like people like what you did with yours, theme and atmosphere, and that. Do you have um, any suggestions? I mean, where did you learn to get a good theme and atmosphere? Are there any craft books, any learning videos, or any courses by particular other authors that helped you?
One of my favorites, I'm still not going to say his name right, Chuck Palahniuk. He
Yeah.
wrote the 36 craft essays
Okay.
for writing, and it was so helpful. He talks about theme a little bit, bearing the eye, just it's rules that you wouldn't think of. It's not the standard rules. It's more out there, and it was really helpful. I read Stephen King on writing. I just look up articles. I'm always trying to learn more. I get stuck and I'm like, I need help. And I'm Googling writing advice all the time.
Okay. All right. Good. Great. All right. Well, I appreciate the chat and the talk, Shannon. It's been great. I'm
Yeah, this
glad to
was
have
fun.
another horror writer on here. I don't get a whole lot of those. So that's fun for me. Before we go and close up the podcast, do you have any last minute advice for new writers?
Just do it. Because I was
You
so
should copyright that. You could use it for, oh
just,
wait, I think somebody did.
I
Go
think
ahead.
that's a
Sorry.
Nike.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I didn't for the longest time. It just seemed so hard. I wanted to be a writer, and it seems like an impossible dream. And so I tried to do other stuff, and I didn't do great at that stuff either. So I was like, well, if I'm not going to do great, I might as well not do great at writing. And I love doing it, and I actually didn't fail at that. I've got stuff out there now, so just do it. If you love writing, just go for it. It'll work out better than you think.
I agree. I had another author tell me that I'm one of those people that jumps off the cliff and builds my wings on the way down. And,
Yeah, me too.
I've embraced that and I love it. So yeah, that's great. All right. Well, Shannon, thank you again for chatting with me today about your book. And I will let you know when this goes live. I hope you had a great time.
Oh, I did. I was terrified, but it was great. I really enjoyed this. Have me on again when I get better and have
Okay.
had more practice answering questions.
I like to have people on a second time after they've got another book or two out and see how things are going and how it's changed. So
Perfect.
I do love the fact that the horror writer was scared. So
Yeah. Well, that's,
right,
part of the job.
right. All right, great. Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
Hi, if you enjoyed this episode of Discovered Wordsmiths, please support the author. Go to their website, go to Amazon, look them up, get the book. And if you click on the link that I have in the show notes, you'll also help support the podcast so I can keep the hosting and all the software I use and keep it running to help more authors. When I am recording this, we've got over 100 episodes, lots of authors. Go to the website, discoveredwordsmiths.com. Check it out. There's a lot of great authors, probably in some genre that you love. See what they have. Check out their books. That's what the point of the podcast is for. So people can discover new authors, find some new books they love, support the authors so they can continue writing. So please support them. And if you do like the podcast, if you've been thinking of podcasting or you're a writer, I've got some links also at the website. Click on those if you're interested in any of the software or services that I talk about. Everything that I have there is something I use, so I've got an affiliate link. Again, it's a little bit, if everyone clicked on those, if they were going to get it anyway, it helps keep the podcast going. So let's all help each other out. And discover more. Discover more authors to read.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.